Hey there, YouTube world. My name is Michael, and this video is to kind of explain what my process has been in 2023 when it comes to navigating the VA claim process as I'm getting ready to retire from the United States Air Force. First and foremost, I just want to make sure it's clear. This isn't official guidance or advice that you should take as gospel. I really just want to share my experiences and hopefully some of the things that I've picked up along this journey can help you kind of understand what you might also come across when you're navigating this process for yourself. So take it for what it is. It's just a helpful video, kind of give you some insights on some of the things that I've experienced, and maybe as you cross paths with similar things, you'll be ready and equipped to understand what's going to happen for your own experience. So first and foremost, be prepared. Talk to other retirees, people going through the process. You can't expect to navigate a process that's complex and has very specific terminology and language without being prepared to navigate that. So have conversations with other people. Take kind of each one with a grain of salt. Everybody's experience and results are going to vary based off of kind of how they approached it. So do have conversations, network, and kind of learn via induction from other people before you kind of dive in with a blindfold on. So one of the first things I'd recommend is going to your medical records office on base and requesting for your medical records. Here in the Colorado Springs area, it was a written request. I went into the records office, submitted my request. They had 30 days to fulfill that request. They provided it to me within that 30 days, and they provided it on a CD for me. And what that really allowed me to do is really just kind of revamp and revalidate that the things that are going on with me are documented on my record. So the great thing about it is has a cover sheet with current issues that you're having, previous issues that you're having, medications that you've taken. And because it's a PDF, you can Control F and kind of search through that thing and make sure that what you've experienced and the medical challenges that you've had during your time in the service are documented in there. And that will kind of help you understand that if you go further down the process and maybe you have to get some additional proof, or you have to get a current appointment with a provider so it can be assessed, you'll kind of understand, hey, yeah, that wasn't really documented well in my record, so I need to go back through and kind of just make it more thorough by seeing a provider and having it evaluated again. So get that record. It won't have obviously anything past that date that you request, but it'll give you a good starting point to then bump that against 38 CFR Part 4. So 38 CFR Part 4 is the official CFR of what a disability from the VA and the DoD is. So, for example, if you have, we'll just use an easy one, tinnitus in your ears, which is ringing of your ears, there is a section in CFR 38 that will address tinnitus and say what would qualify as a disability under 38 CFR. So 38 CFR is kind of your by the book answer on what is a disability. So many people have a misconception out there that, oh, well, I broke my ankle in 2012, and that means I'm going to get some type of disability rating for my ankle. That's not necessarily the case. You have to look at that CFR and you have to understand what the parameters are for it to be considered a disability. So an injury or a medical visit doesn't necessarily equate to a disability. It equates to medical treatment. So make sure you understand the difference there. Do your due diligence. CFR, 38 CFR Part 4, and it literally goes through the entire body from behavioral to the gambit of what would be considered a disability. So that's a big difference between just a medical condition and a disability. Make sure you understand those things. So part of that is just understanding that you're speaking the same language that the medical providers are and the evaluators are. Too many of us are out there shotgunning, kind of winging what we think needs to be communicated. And by just becoming a little bit more educated on what the terminology is, what you're experiencing, and making sure you're communicating the same language is going to make sure that your things are documented appropriately. So, if you have an injury, but right now it's not a disability, but it happened on active duty, so maybe it's even best that you mention it in the right language, so you get a 0% rating on it. And then if it gets worse down the road, it's documented in your record that, hey, this is something that happened to you on active duty. It wasn't a disability at the time, but over time it's continued to impact you, so it's on your record. And in other instances where maybe you've tried to be tough, or you've not necessarily communicated the real issues associated with it because there's maybe secondary, tertiary effects from you saying that while you're on active duty, maybe now it's time to communicate those appropriately, so the impacts of your service and as far as what it's done to your health are documented appropriately in your VA record. So it's about making sure that you are, once again, prepared and equipped to speak their language to make sure that your things are documented appropriately. So one of the first steps was requesting those records. After that, I went into scheduling my VSO appointment. So some of you might be saying, what's a VSO? A VSO is a certified official from the VA that is not part of the VA that helps you file your claim and can provide you assisted services even outside of active duty. So these VSOs, I'm using DAV. It's a very well-known one. You can get on the VA website and it'll tell you all the certified VSOs within your region. Here in Colorado Springs, the DAV in Colorado Springs is amazing. The reps that they have over there are responsive, they're professional, and they just really help make sure things keep moving for you. They have such a big military audience down here that they got to be on the A game, and they definitely are, so I really appreciate them. So you're schedule a VSO meeting. Now you're primarily looking at being able to do that between 210 and 180 days. And I get it. We're antsy. We want to get these processes started. We know that they're time sensitive, but you just got to remember that depending on the VSO that you pick, can determine really kind of what their backlog is and how many people they're servicing. So be patient with them, and they do a lot of legwork for us. So understand that if it takes a little while to get in, it takes a little while to get in. Just make sure that you're prepared when that is time. So with my VSO appointment, it was a remote call. What they did was they sent me an email ahead of time that had some forms, some supporting documents, a couple pre-screens, a power of attorney, and I filled all those out prior to my actual virtual appointment with them. So some of those things that are going to help you out when it comes to actually getting your stuff rolling, and maybe some of the medical screener that the VSO has you filled out, is understanding what is on your med doc, so when you go in and answer those questions, you can answer them appropriately. The power of attorney ultimately allows the VSO to pretty much create the start of your claim and request your medical docs from the DoD, VA, whatever. But they're able to then, one, request those documents. Two, they're able to file things on your behalf. So you get all those forms together. You're going to talk to your VSO rep. And they're going to go through kind of what your pre-screen form says. They're going to review your medical record. They're going to look at things that maybe you didn't document, but they were in your record that you didn't claim. And they'll kind of help make sure that they consolidate a list of claims that they're going to file on your behalf. So after having that conversation with my VSO, I was able to then get a confirmation email with a letter from DAV that said, these are the number of items that this individual is claiming, and they submit it into the VA e-benefits site. My VSO, like I said, I can't give them enough props here. The DAV office in Colorado Springs, they told me exactly what was going to happen. They submit the claims that I would like to open up. that a VA claims rep would then contact me either via email or by phone, and then by phone ultimately. And then that will kick off the process for me to actually start my evaluation process. So claim was submitted on, we'll just say, a Tuesday. By Wednesday, my VA claim officer called me. By Thursday, the contractor that was going to be scheduling my evaluations contacted me to start setting things up. So that's kind of the chronological process you could also expect to see when it comes to that post meeting with the VSO. After the VSO call, my claims rep pretty much just said, expect to start getting some calls, which the next day I did. And here in Colorado Springs, I've been receiving services from VES, Veteran Service Solutions, something like that. They've been awesome as well. Clear communication. They send me a letter with the date, time, location of all my appointments. Obviously, the big thing is communicate with your contractor if you can't make it. Mine asked me specifically, are there dates that you do not want us to schedule things on that are conflicting? I gave them those dates, and they made sure to program my stuff around that. Now, depending on what your claims are, you're going to see potentially multiple appointments, and they're kind of categorized based off of what they fall within, right? So if you say like, hey, I got a bum shoulder, a bum knee, a bum ankle, you're not going to go to 3 separate specialists for evaluation. You're going to, typically the general practitioner is going to be the one that evaluates you for those types of things. Now, if you have behavioral health issues that you might have to go see a psychologist for it. If you have hearing issues, obviously you'll go do a hearing evaluation with the audiologist. If you have to do labs, I had to do blood pressure, x-rays, things like that. They get it all scheduled for you and tell you where to go and when to do it. So the same thing, when you're getting ready to go have these conversations and conduct these appointments, just making sure that you're refreshed on what you're there for and why. So for my psych one, obviously, what happened? How did it impact you? How does it continue to impact you? Are kind of the types of questions that you can see from each of these evaluators. Hearing, obviously a hearing test. How good is your hearing since your initial evaluation when you first came into the service? And then obviously things like tinnitus or delayed response stuff, things like that. So just a typical in-depth hearing test to go through those things. And then you talk about like your general practitioner stuff. So that's the big one that covers the majority of the things that you're probably going to be claiming. Those are going to be things like joint issues, medications, diagnoses, things that are documented within your record that don't necessarily need a specialist to verify or to reevaluate you on as far as disability stuff goes. So biggest things I could tell you with that is be transparent. Don't be a tough guy or tough girl when it comes to what you're trying to tell them. My experience with my general practitioner was we spent about 2.5 hours going through my medical history on the things that I've claimed and things I've documented, and verbally kind of going over when it had happened, what had happened, how it impacted me at the time, and how it currently impacts me today. So those are kind of the questions that verbally I helped answer. That gives the doctor some understanding of where to go and what to go validate in your medical records against that. And then that might also kick off some more evaluations and things like that. So an example for me was a blood pressure thing that doesn't really fall within the qualification of a disability. However, just because it's not a disability and I haven't necessarily been diagnosed with, we'll just say high blood pressure. They wanted me to go do blood pressure measurements for 2 days straight, 3 times a day. to kind of get a good understanding of what my blood pressure is now. And even if that's a 0% rating, if my blood pressure gets worse over time, then that could be a service-connected issue, right? So you might see some results like that. After I got done with the verbal aspect of things, we did range of motion, which is, whatever joints you're claiming are the ones that they're going to evaluate when it comes to range of motion, pain, things like that. And then after I got done with that, we did just your typical, I would say like a physical, right? Sports physical type thing. Eyes, ears, nose, throat, mouth, things like that. After I was done, they let me on my way, and I am now, so the result of that was I need additional x-rays and blood pressure. They'll consolidate all those things, and that will end up going into my claim for the VA. So I contacted my VSO. I said, hey, I am done with what I believe needs to be done from VES. Is there anything I need to do on my end to ensure that all my stuff's in there? And I was told, hey, all your stuff's in there. If the VA requires anything additionally, then they'll contact you and say, hey, we need you to go do X, Y, and Z. And that's going to be if there's a claim open that they don't see a definitive X, Y, or Z, or a certain place that they can categorize you when it comes against that claim. And maybe they say, hey, we want to go schedule you for X, Y, and Z evaluation so that we can have appropriate documentation and make an appropriate classification, is my understanding of it. So a couple things with that. You have to determine for yourself kind of how you want to go about things. Talking with a couple people, really the determination is, are you happy with the result of your evaluations? 90 days is a sweet spot if you're active duty, that as long as your stuff's done by then, you could pretty much assume that your VA claim stuff will work out relatively timely, as long as you're not changing a bunch of stuff. So, for example, my records were pulled from 2 months ago. So anything from 2 months ago till the day I actually retire is not going to be in my records there. So I have to focus on making sure that anything that's of value to either supporting my claims or diagnosis with other additional things get uploaded into the VA e-benefit site, to make sure that I'm still providing the right amount of proof for things that are service connected for me. Now, some people are saying like, hey, I don't care what, when I start getting my benefits from the VA, I want it done the right way, and I want to make sure I'm at the right percentage out the gate. Fair. Just understand that the longer that you go past that 90 days, my understanding is that will just obviously delay what your percentage is, when it's awarded, and when you'll start receiving your benefits. So just understand where you're at with that for yourself. That's how I think it plays out. I'm not to that point yet, but things to consider. If you want additional things to be brought to the VA as far as maybe additional claims in the last few months that you're in and your claim status has already kind of started, by all means you can add more things to it. But if you keep adding ones and twosy things, they might just kick back your whole VA claim and say, consolidate all your documents and then resubmit so we can reevaluate it as a whole. Your other option is always to let your initial claim go through, and then within the first year, it's not very hard and not very criticized when it comes to making things, adding things to your VA claim and then being service connected. The issues you're going to run into way down the road is, 10 years from now, you try to claim something that wasn't initially documented. Then you might run into a scenario that proving service connection could get a little bit trickier. So that's just kind of where my experience has been to this point. I hope that's helpful. I'll try to put some links in the description below for the CFR and TRICARE Online. One thing I did not mention yet, as you go through these assessments, you will be able to get on TRICARE Online, go to your patient record, and I believe it's under documents. you'll be able to get in there and kind of see the notes of the evaluations that you go to for your VA. It won't tell you percentage. It won't. They don't dictate that, so it's just their clinical notes. But you'll be able to at least review and see, like, hey, these are the things that they are documenting for me, marking yes to for me, and then you kind of have a general understanding of where your claim status is sitting when it comes to those specific open claims that they evaluated you for. So I hope this is helpful. This is just what I've experienced. Like I said, in 2023, I've had nothing but a helpful VSO. The contractor VES has been extremely professional. All the doctors that I've dealt with have been professional and helpful. But also, I came in there prepared, reviewed my records, was aware of the 38 CFR, and make sure I was just speaking the same language that doctors speak to the best of my ability to communicate how I'm feeling, what's impacting me, and making sure that I make it as transparent and easy for those providers as possible to document what's going on. So hopefully when my VA claim goes through, the rating is accurate and reflects my actual medical status when it comes to disabilities. So good luck out there. I know it can be stressful. Just stay the course, network, have the right conversations with people that have already gone through this experience, and fingers crossed that your experience is so up to this point as trouble-free as mine has been. I think it helps a lot. So good luck out there, and have a blessed day.